All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be going over the 5 step story structure. So, I have 2 documents here that I want to go over. So, first of all, just to address this, it says review the attached documents, write your favorite TV, or I'm sorry, watch your favorite TV show or movie, and use the 5 step story structure Word document that is attached to break down the 5 steps of story structure that developed in the movie or TV show that you chose to watch. I also have an example attached, which of course I'm gonna explain that. But of course, I don't want you to copy that. And as you can see, you will get a 0 if you do that. So let's get into it. So the first thing that I'm gonna pull up is this example, and we're gonna look at these 5 steps. I know I talked about it in class, but just to go over it again, we're gonna do this. All right, so the 5 steps are inciting incident, progressive complications, crisis, climax, resolution. And then I have a space where you can list your thoughts on the movie or TV show that you chose and describe why you like that movie or TV show. So here we go. So the inciting incident. So to categorize it as or not really to categorize it, but to describe it, the inciting incident is an event that occurs that forces that main character or hero to leave their regular life in order to do something out of the norm. So as I said in class, uh, the greatest example, well, the example that's constantly on my mind because I love the film Queen and Slim, is Queen and Slim killing a cop. So they're 2 regular people, and again, their life changes forever when they're faced with this situation where they have to kill this cop because the cop is going to kill them. So after that point, they can't go back to normal. Their life is changed after that. So this is the inciting incident again because these main characters or heroes, they can't go back to their regular life. They have to do something out of the norm. Sometimes this inciting incident, it may not be as drastic as that, but again, there's gonna be something that happens during that inciting incident to change that person's norm to where now they got to do other stuff because they can't go back to normal. And so for the TV show that I chose, just to kind of backtrack with this example, of course, you'll put your name. I just put a fake name there. The date, of course, the period that you're in. And then we have this slot that says movie/TV show name. So for mine, I put Atlanta because that's the TV show that I chose uh, to evaluate or break down with this 5 step story structure. And then in parentheses, what I did is I noted the actual episode. So the name of this episode was Barbershop. So again, that was the inciting incident. So as I have down here for that particular TV show, I said that Paperboy and his barber leave the barber shop to check on the barber's kid on his barber's kids. So again, Paperboy is in the chair and everything, and what he had planned for that day was to get a quick haircut and then get out so he can go to this photo shoot. But all of that is his norm is disrupted when his barber gets a call from the barber's girlfriend. And then at that point, it's like, oh, okay, I'll be over there. And so Paperboy's day changes when he has to ride with his barber, or when he chooses to ride with his barber over to his barber's girlfriend's house for whatever reason. And at that point, the other thing is Paperboy's hair is partially cut. So he's invested as well, not because he wants to be, but because he has to. So again, that is the inciting incident. Because again, from that point, Paperboy has to do something out of the norm based on that decision to go over there with him. So then we have these progressive complications. So if you notice in whatever you're evaluating, whether it's a movie or TV show, you're going to have quite a few progressive complications, right? Because take heed to that word progressive. Progressive meaning that you're going and going and going and going, almost like progressing in a class, right? You start off small, it may be a little easy, but then it keeps progressively or gradually getting a little more, a little more rigorous or harder and harder and harder and harder. The levels keep on going up. So that same concept applies here, because in these progressive complications, starts off small. So as the main character, my ultimate goal most times is to get back to being normal, right? After you get into whatever situation, it's like, all right, automatically, I want things to be back to the way they were. But then you have this thing that's stopping you from reaching that goal. And so then next you got this other thing. And then after that, you got this other thing. And then the next thing. And then the next thing. Ultimately, until we lead to almost like that cherry on top, in which we call the crisis, that's like that final straw, which we'll get to that in a second. But again, you have all of these complications that lead to that crisis or that boiling point. So to go over what progressive complications are, again, they are obstacles that push the main character's goal out of reach. So as I was saying, again, after that inciting incident, more than likely, the character wants to go back to normal, whatever that is for them. And it's different for different characters because they're in different positions in life. But with that said, they want to go back to normal so bad after that inciting incident. But again, you have all of these complications. So for Paperboy, his normal is, I want to get my hair cut because I gotta go to this photo shoot. Time is money. So what stops him from that, the further complications are, once they get to the barber's girlfriend's house, the barber confronts his girlfriend because once they get in the house, she's yelling at him. And so then he ends up making up a lie and says, well, I was helping Paperboy with this car because it had broke down. I was being a good Samaritan and all of that stuff. So that's the first thing right there. And then the barber acts like he's gonna cut Paperboy's hair. So he's like, all right, come over here so I can cut your hair. And he takes some clippers out. Paperboy starts walking over there and he's like, no, I'm talking about my son. So he pretty much teases Paperboy with possibly getting a haircut then and there. So that's one of the first obstacles, because it's like, okay, now I'm going to get back to normal. But then the obstacle is, nah, we got to get this little boy's haircut out of the way. So then the next one, they're riding back, what seems like they're going to ride back to the barber shop. But then you have the barber that teases Paperboy with the idea of buying lunch. So then Paperboy's like, yeah, I'm hungry. He's like, hey, you want some Zaxby's? Yeah, you paying for it. It's like, oh, bet. So they don't actually go to Zaxby's, but the barber drives to this house that's being constructed on like a construction site, like in a neighborhood. So then over there, he had some Zaxby's on that property. And so, of course, after that point, Paperboy doesn't want that because, you can only imagine. You don't know where it's been or whatever. And so then what that leads to is, after he doesn't want to eat that, now the barber reveals that the only reason why he brought him over there to that construction site was to steal some lumber. And they almost get caught as they go off. So now Paperboy, he has, like, I think he's on probation or something. So now he's kind of fearful of that before that they leave or as they're leaving before any cops come. So then the next complication is the barber is driving again to the barber shop, but then all of a sudden out of nowhere he sees his son walking down the street with some friends, and so then he starts pretty much chasing him with the car. And to make a long story short, with this complication, he goes over to him and, he's yelling at him and all of that. And then all of a sudden he's like, hey, Paperboy, why don't you talk to my son? And give him some guidance, talk to the youth and whatnot. And so at this point, this is another thing that takes Paperboy further away from his obstacle of being normal, which is to get this hair cut over with so that he can get back to this photo shoot or to go to the photo shoot. So with that said, he gets out of the car all mad and everything, and he's about to say something, and then the kid starts talking about how messed up his hair is. And so then he explains to the kid in a very angry way that his dad is the reason why, because he won't finish the haircut. So then Paperboy, the barber, and the barber's son get back in the car, and they are finally again on their way for the second or third time, hopefully back to the barbershop. So then the next complication comes up where the barber is again driving, but he's distracted. So you can tell that his eyes really aren't steadily on the road, because the main thing that he's doing is he's trying to tell his son all of these things to reprimand him and put him in his place and tell him how wrong he was, all to be distracted that whole time. Paperboy keeps on saying, hey, keep your eyes on the road. He just goes off again on saying, hey, keep your eyes on the road. He does it again and again and again until he's speeding and he ends up rear-ending this lady. So then the lady gets out of the car, and she's in pain and yelling and all of that. And then he just drives off. So now we're to this crisis moment. In this crisis moment, you have the barber, so that they finally made it back to the barber shop. And as the son goes through the front door of the barber shop, they end up, going in. And then as Paperboy is trying to walk in, the barber gets another call. He's like, oh, yeah, I'll be over there in a second to cut your hair or do whatever. And he's like, hey, Paperboy, let's go wherever. And then Paperboy kind of grabs him by the shirt, really aggressively, and just gives him that mean stare down. So then after that, it's like the barber's like, all right, I'm gonna cut your hair. So that's not even the climax. So and actually, no, I'm gonna stop right there and explain the crisis. So in the crisis, what happens is the character has to evaluate their options. So from this point, Paperboy had the option of, all right, I'm going to just go back and, I'll waste more time with him as he goes wherever he's going. And I'll just ride on this roller coaster ride. Or I'm going to stand up to him and we're going to have this confrontation, which leads to that climax. So again, what he does in that moment is he clearly decides, this is what I'm doing. We're not doing that other thing. I've evaluated my options, and this is what's going to happen. I'm going to go up against you. Fight hasn't happened yet, but again, I'm choosing this route. All right, and that's the crisis. So going on to the climax. The climax is simply where the main character fights their villain. And again, the main character and villain, they are, of course, two different things for almost every movie or TV show that you watch. So again, in superhero type movies, it's easy to say, okay, you got Batman, that's the superhero, and you have the Joker, that's the villain, right? That's stereotypical. And even in a story like Snow White or whatever, and I need to look back at that because I'm a little cloudy on it. But you have the good person, the Snow White, and you might have an evil witch, right? That's that villain. But with that said, in other stories, you have villains in different ways, right? You have the killers that are the villains, or the drug dealers that are the villains, and you have the good people in that city, or the lawmakers, or whatever person that's that hero. And sometimes in certain movies you even have, or TV shows, you even have lawmakers that are villains. So, and also different types of heroes. So with that said, I say that to say that heroes and villains can come in many different forms. But again, with that climax, as you evaluate who's the hero and who's the villain, what you must understand is that, again, the climax is that face off between that hero, whatever that looks like, and that villain, whatever that villain looks like. And the main thing to keep in mind is during this battle or duel, whatever you want to call it, this face off, there's stakes at play. What are stakes? Stakes are simply what you have to lose, right? If I'm a prize fighter and I'm the heavyweight champion of the world, well, guess what? What I have to lose is this title belt and this title as being the heavyweight champion. So for these people, especially for superheroes, stakes that are on the line is, if I don't defeat this person, people die. Could also be, if I don't defeat this person, I die. If I'm a person in a courtroom and I've been wrongfully accused of a crime, if I don't defeat this villain, which could be the prosecution that's trying to put me in jail, now I lose my life. So again, the reason why stakes are important and why you see it in every good story is because if people don't have anything to lose, then the will to fight is not there. Again, if you don't have anything to lose, then there's no reason to fight. So with that said, again, the climax is when the main character fights the villain. And of course, during this duel, there's something to lose. And it forever changes the world of the story. So for instance, in here, I have an example with Black Panther. And it says in Black Panther, of course, the Black Panther, if the Black Panther loses the final battle against Killmonger, there is no way for him to help his people. Therefore, a loss would mean that Wakanda would suffer forever under the control of Killmonger. So again, those are the stakes in that final battle. There's no more flowers to bring him back to life. But again, hopefully I'm drilling this in your mind. But again, the climax is that ultimate fight, face off, whatever you want to call it, between the main character, hero, and the villain. And based off of that outcome, that will forever change the world of that story. All right, so from my example, Paperboy confronts his barber about how much of an inconvenience that the day was. And then the barber has the nerve to ask Paperboy to pay him. So Paperboy ends up paying him, but then he just throws the money at him because he's angry. You know, you wasted all of my time, took me here, there, and everywhere with half of a haircut, and now you're going to ask me for that. You know what I mean? It's almost like, are you crazy? But he ends up giving him that. So then we have the resolution. So the resolution is categorized as, of course, the ending of a movie or TV show. So that's kind of like a duh thing. But it also shows what happens to everyone as a result of the climax. So again, going back to that point that I was drilling in the climax, again, the result of that battle changes the world of the story. So with that said, going back to my Wakanda example or my Black Panther example, if the Black Panther wins, then that means that all harmony is restored in Wakanda and you see it looking more like itself, going back to that sense of normalcy and whatnot. But also on the other end, if Killmonger would have won, then now they're in ruins and you probably see a totally different Wakanda. One that's oppressed, one that's sad, one that's totally unlike what you would think it would be or what it was. And all of that is going to be shown in that resolution. Some way, somehow. It's usually done in a creative way sometimes, but again, the result is going to be shown in that resolution. So then for my last part, of course, I said list your thoughts on the TV show or on the TV show or movie. Read that backwards. Describe why you like this movie or TV show below. So this is what I wrote. I like this FX original TV show, Atlanta, for a few reasons. This show is interesting while providing great spurts of comedy. This series makes me want to think about what's going on in the lives of the characters, which is very true. They're on the show because because of each of their personality. I also like the TV show because it's based on a city that I love, which is Atlanta, which is where I'm from, right? From suburbs of Atlanta, but I'm from Atlanta. So again, with that, you just want to put down why you like the show and maybe some thoughts on why you like that particular episode or that particular movie. For me, again, Atlanta, it's based on a city that, of course, lived here all my life. But with that said, the other reason why I like this particular episode is because, as I've written or typed down there, I can really identify with this barbershop scene. I can closely identify with it because even though I haven't gone through the exact same thing, I've gone through a similar situation where, of course, I wasn't riding around with my barber at the time, but because that would just be crazy. But there was a time where actually there was one barber I had to discontinue service with because there were a few times where he had this scheduling system where, it was app generated and all of that. So he knew exactly when people were coming and whatnot, but just the way that he would back up stuff and just be wasting time where, like, for instance, you got a 4:30 appointment and in the past, whenever you have that appointment set, it's like close to that time, like really, really close. Maybe not perfect, but it's really, really close. But imagine now, consistently, homie will be an hour behind every time or end up choosing other people over me when we've already worked out a time. And it's like, I got other things to do, but yet this is what you want to do. And you're going to do it consistently. So I had to discontinue it. So again, that's my personal connection to this episode. So with that said, this is the assignment. I went in depth with it. So hopefully you got something out of this. And again, you might be wondering, like, what's the reason why we're going over all of this? Before we go deeper into possibly writing anything, I want you to evaluate what these professionals are doing. Again, you have people, especially on these TV shows, that have written stuff for years upon years. Look at the structure that they have. Look at why people use this structure. Look at the buy-in that you have, because there's a reason why you like that movie that you chose, or there's a reason why you like that TV show that you chose. So with that said, look at those parts, because again, once you dissect that and see, okay, this is what they did, and okay, this is what this means, and this is why they did that, then you'll start thinking about, okay, this is why they're taking people this place, because this is engaging and this is interesting, all of these things. And hopefully what this will do is it'll help you with your creative process. So what I mean even by that is that it will spark greater thoughts. You know what I mean? So as you potentially write in the future, this is going to do nothing but make you aware of what you should have. Therefore, if you write something and it doesn't have certain parts of these steps, or it doesn't have enough complications leading up to that crisis, then you can kind of self-edit. So again, that's the mindset with this. So with that said, if you haven't done it already, have fun. And again, I hope this helped you. But that is today's tutorial. And also, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. I'm available. Send me an email. If you need a video conference with that, send me an email, and I can set that up, give you further information on it. But with that said, have a great day, and get it done and submit it on Edmodo. And actually, you know what? Before I get off, I'll show you this. So if we go to Edmodo, before I clicked on the example, now I'm going to click on 5-step story structure breakdown. So this is like the template. So on here, if it'll load up quickly enough, as you should notice, this is just a template. All right. So it has everything that the example had, but the difference is that the answers aren't there, the content, because it really wasn't any answers, but it was the explanations. So again, the explanations aren't there, but this is what I want you to type all of your work in. All right. So with that said, again, as always, after you're done, and let's say I got a few submissions right now, but after you're done, this submission button, it'll look a little different for you. It'll probably say open. And so, of course, you would click on that and submit that from there, or the assignment from there. So again, with that said, it's due on Friday, but have fun with it. And yeah, let's get it. Have a good day.